The meeting's live.
Okay, thank you very much. Good evening, everyone, and I'd like to welcome members and officers to this Cabinet meeting, and also welcome those who are watching online, as well as our colleagues who have chosen to attend this meeting in person to observe. Please note that the meeting is being live streamed on the Council's YouTube channel. Councillors, please be aware that later in the meeting we will be going into part 2. This involves moving the officers in this chamber. This involves moving the officers who are joining us via Zoom into a virtual breakout room, and those in this chamber will obviously remain where we are. However, on the YouTube channel, we'll be displaying a holding message. This may take a few seconds, so please ensure that we've been advised that we're in part 2 before you start talking about the item that we will be discussing there. Before the meeting starts, I'd like to invite the committee member and scrutiny manager to explain how proceedings will work.
Thank you, Chair. I'll start with a roll call of the officers attending remotely, in no particular order. Andrew Mills.
Present, thank you.
Thank you. Chris Jeffrey.
Present.
Ian Cooper.
Present.
Joe Dufficy.
Present.
Anthony Roche.
Present.
Ruben Ayavu.
Present.
Steve Crowley.
Present.
Thank you very much. On speaking, if a member wishes to speak, they should use the speak button located on your microphone unit. Your microphone will turn on automatically, so please wait for the permission of the chair before you start speaking. When requested to vote, voting will be via the yes, no, abstain buttons on your microphone unit. Details of how members voted will be shown on the screens around the room, and the result will be visible on the YouTube stream. On COVID social distancing, please be mindful of maintaining as safe a distance from one another as possible, and be aware that you are advised to wear masks while moving around the building. Exit and entry to the room in the building will be guided by marshals. Are there any questions? Thank you very much. Councillor Dennis Harburg.
Thank you very much, William. So first item is apologies for absence. I've got apologies from Councillor Gary Grindle to record, and as yet Councillor Sam Collins isn't present. We also invite our Deputy Cabinet members to attend this meeting, and although they are not required to be here, Carol Stanier has apologised for not being able to join us tonight. Does anyone have any other apologies? Yeah.
I noticed there was an email from Councillor Brown that she'd sent her apologies as well.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? No. Excellent. Okay, in that case, next item is the minutes of the meeting held on the 20th of July 2021. I'd like to propose that we take these as read and approve as a true record of the minutes of the meeting of Cabinet held on that date. Could I have a seconder, please?
Happy to second, Madam Chair.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy. Are there any comments? No? Lovely. In that case, can we move to the vote, please, Will?
Thank you, Chair. That motion is carried, though I notice Councillor Billing, did you vote on that? Okay. Do apologise. Right.
I would have voted yes.
Could I suggest that we take that rather than rerun the whole thing? Excellent. Right. And now notification of any other business. I have been notified of none. Chair's announcements. I'm going to read this. In accordance with council policy, this meeting is being audio recorded as well as filmed. The audio recording will be available on the NHDC website and the film recording via the NHDC YouTube channel. Members are reminded that this council has declared a climate emergency. This is a serious decision, and it means that as this is an emergency, all of us, members and officers, have that in mind as we carry out various roles and tasks for the benefit of our district. More details are included on the agenda front sheet. Members are reminded to make declarations of interest before an item. The detailed reminder about this and speaking rights is set out under Chair's announcements on the agenda. I'm going to take item 8, the council plan, before item 7, which is the customer service strategy. I think the reasons for that are logical and obvious. There's a part 2 item to be taken at this meeting as well, and I intend to move the meeting into part 2 session to consider the confidential report prior to taking the part 1 report on the same item. So for the YouTube purposes, that means that we will be displaying the holding screen while we consider part 2, and then we will be coming back and going live on YouTube to discuss the part 1 aspect. Public participation, we've got none listed for tonight. So that brings me to agenda item 6, which is items referred from other committees. I think we're taking 6A, which is the referral from the Finance, Audit and Risk Committee, with item 10 on the agenda. 6B, we're going to look at when we look at item 11. 6C, which is the medium-term financial strategy, is going to be taken with item 12. And the referral from overview and scrutiny on the customer service strategy we'll be taking with item 7, David. Okay, so item 7 is the council plan and council priorities. And I'm going to ask Ruben Ayavu to present that for me.
Thank you, Chair. This report sets out the new council plan for 2022 to 2027. It sets out the vision and the 3 new priorities and asks for Cabinet to review and recommend that which is set out for them to full council. So the vision is we'll put people first and deliver. Sorry, I'm going to cover the key points. Assume you've read the report yourselves. We put people first and deliver sustainable services to enable a brighter future together. That is the vision. In the recommendations, we can see the priorities there: people first, sustainability, and a brighter future together. A little expansion on those. When we talk about people first, we talk about the value we place on our residents, our businesses, our staff, our contractors, our councillors and other partners, and place them at the heart of everything we do. In terms of sustainability, we talk about a commitment to delivering our services which are relevant and sustainable. And in doing so, we place our environmental responsibilities as well as sound financial planning at the centre of our policy making. And brighter future together, we're talking about our long-term plans to secure the best outcomes for our people, our towns, our villages, our local economy, making sure that North Hart's a place that continues to thrive. The drafting this was by a small working group as 5.1 notes, mix of officers and members with engagement from Public Liaison Board and other service directors. And the other thing I wanted to say, I think in the PEC you have in front of you, you have the report Appendix A, which is a Word version of the council plan. And I think you have also an addendum, which is a mock-up of the council plan with additional graphics. I will stress it's not a final version, but it will give Cabinet a flavour of what it will look like in its completed version. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Ruben. I was going to flag that what we've got in front of us in the additional supplementary paper is very much a mock-up. This is not the finished content, but I felt that it was important that members could see what the plan might look like, as opposed to just looking at words on a piece of paper. And I feel very much that the look and feel of this particular plan, given what we're trying to achieve with placing our people at the heart of everything that we do, is very, very important. So I want us to be as transparent and open with that as we possibly can be at this stage. I think Ruben's neatly summarised the majority of what I would say on this item in introducing it. So I'm happy to take questions, comments, discussions on this. Steve was first, Ian.
Yeah, I'm glad that Ruben has clarified that we've got one version with the words and one which is the kind of visuals that we don't have, because I'd spotted that they weren't quite the same words in the two versions. But as I understand it, the words in the report are the final version of the words. No, they're not.
So what we are doing is this is still in the process of being tidied up and tightened. It's been through the workshop groups that some of us were involved in, and it's had officer feedback. I've sort of gone through it a number of times as well. And I think Sarah Kingsley has started running it through the communications process as well. The broad theme and direction that we're heading in is there. The majority of the words, I think, now are where we might like them to be, but this is not at this stage the final draft. And clearly the graphics and the images in the additional paper that we've been given are not the finished product yet. There's certainly some photos that I think maybe we could change and move them. But the more important thing is that we're satisfied with the direction that we're heading in. We've got those core priorities. We've got the key themes that we're looking at, and we're using this as a strategic policy document that will then lead our budget setting agenda, and the medium-term financial strategy will link into this document rather than, as has happened sometimes I feel in the past, budget leading policy setting, which isn't right in local government.
So I understand and agree with all that. Presumably then we're going to change the recommendation, which says we recommend the approval of the plan. So presumably on Thursday we are approving some words, are we, or not?
Well, if you're recommending, it should be the final version that you're recommending to full council, because we can't revisit that within 6 months.
That's what I assumed it was. I'm happy with the words, and indeed I'm happy with the pictures, except where the picture version is different.
Yeah. Okay, I take the point, Steve. Thank you. Ian.
Thanks, Chair. I mean, I welcome this paper and this plan, and I think it is a considerable improvement on past plans and certainly our previous version. And I particularly like the fact that we have set ourselves, I think, some clear projects within there and some timeframes to deliver those. And then also I think there is a much clearer linkage back to, and I can try not to repeat that too much later on, back to the medium-term financial strategy. And I think that I think is really key as well, to make sure these are two integrated things. Probably worth just saying under community spaces, I think, because I always like mentioning things that went well, is that under the Charnwood item, where we had an absolutely brilliant turnout of residents across North Herts and Hitchin, particularly when we had the open days there. We had more than 160 questionnaires filled in, around about 250 people came along. And so one of the challenges clearly, Chair, will be to think about in part of the budget setting as to whether we as a council wish to commit some refurbishment money in our next round of budget setting towards a Charnwood House refurbishment. And that's certainly something that we'll need to reflect on with officers in the run up to that. I'm certainly quite keen that we do, but obviously we need to look at our overall affordability and all the other projects that come along as part of that. But I'm really pleased to see that as being an item that we've formally mentioned there, and something that's long overdue. So yeah, welcome the paper, welcome, and happy to support the recommendations.
Thank you very much. Judy.
Thank you. I'm going to admit to possibly being slightly muddled in wondering whether Steve was being slightly muddled. But I did wonder whether the graphics that he was referring to, because I can't see any graphics on the stuff I've got, other than to do with the customer service strategy. There, okay, fine. I've been in an aeroplane. I've been on a holiday. Do forgive me. Okay, I just wondered whether there was some crossover there that we were trying to bed into the same document. But if we're not, that's fine. I too support the plan in the words that it has. And I will make sure, having now reached the ground at Luton Airport, that I will have a look at the graphics bit as well. My apologies.
That's fine. Thank you very much, Judy. I think, like, for me, the customer service strategy sits as one of those sort of documents that is underneath the council plan. So the council plan sets our overarching framework, and then we will have things like that.
Is it what we call a daughter document?
It is.
Thank you.
It is. And I think that that's long overdue as well. Right. Any more sort of feedback, questions, queries, concerns?
Chair, if I could, had my hand up, but not sure if you've noticed. So just picking up Councillor Jarvis's point it would probably make sense to add a second recommendation, that something along the lines of that Cabinet recommends to Council that finalising the text of the Council plan is delegated to the Leader of the Council and the Managing Director. And then that way, that gives us a mechanism for approving those very final tweaks that we will need to do to the document. But the overarching principles, the 3 new priorities, the new vision, none of that is changing. So it would be fine for Council to approve that and then give us a mechanism for making those final tweaks.
Okay, Judy?
I just wanted to suggest it be sensible to delegate that to the leader and the deputy leader and the managing director.
Yes, I think that that sounds like a good and sensible way forward for us. Any additional comments? No? Excellent. In that case, can we please move to the vote on that amended recommendation?
Thank you, Chair. That motion is carried.
Thank you very much. Okay. Now I need to jump back to the, which I will put my tongue back in and get myself together. Hang on. So we need to now move to look at the customer service strategy. This always happens when I have to jump around agenda papers. Could someone remind me who's presenting customer service? Is that you, Joe?
Yes.
Yes. Go on then.
So this is the daughter document that was just referred to. I'll just pick out some of the key points from the report. So as per the executive summary, this report this evening is proposing a new customer service strategy and customer care standards at Appendix A and B. Following on from the council plan, the strategy preemptively refers to the people first priority and sets out how we'll put our customers at the heart of everything that we do and that we will be easy to deal with. Obviously, the pandemic has brought about changes in how we and many others work and how we have been interacting with our customers and others. And that's necessitated the need for us to make services even more accessible through a digital first approach. Some examples of some of the things that we've implemented during the pandemic include a chatbot on our website. We've enabled the electronic submission of benefit and housing documents and also offered video calls as an alternative to in-person visits to the council offices. Whilst doing this, we recognise that for some, the traditional methods of contact remain essential, and we will continue to provide those. For in-person visits, an appointment-based system will provide a more personal, discreet, and convenient service. The strategy itself gives a strong commitment to our customers and provides a clear operating model to ensure a consistent approach. And the target operating model was a recommendation of the feedback from the peer review, which we have obviously taken on board. We've also taken the opportunity to have the strategy reviewed by SIAS throughout the drafting and the final stages. I think they're the main points on the strategy from me. Recommendations are at 2.1 and 2.2. I would like to just slightly amend 2.1 to align the end date with that of the council plan. So to change that to 2027, however, to stress that this will be a live document and that it will be kept under review. And as at 2.2, any minor changes are covered by that recommendation.
Thank you very much, Joe, and thanks for the additional clarification on end dates and how we're going to view this document. Now, before I sort of throw it over to Cabinet members to discuss and look at this, I think having heard from Joe, it would be fair for us to hear from the Chair of Scrutiny as to their comments on that. So, David, can you give us your feedback, please?
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, first of all, to my Vice Chairman, Dan, for covering for me at the meeting last week as I was isolating and members can't take part virtually in the meetings. So I did watch it online. And I did take part in that sort of way. There was quite a lot of a fair bit of discussion on this. I think the main thing that came out of it was that, yes, this is a necessary document to have this strategy in place, and it makes it quite clear what that is. I think the other thing that came out, which Joe's already touched on, is about, although it's now mainly digital contact, it is important not to lose sight of the fact that some people can't or won't use digital technology. And as an open council, we must ensure that there is still the traditional means of contacting this council and people getting in touch with it. Overall, Chair, I think that's the main comments that came out from overview and scrutiny. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, David. Okay, Judy.
Thank you, Chair. I, of course, absolutely support and applaud a strategy which is about customer service. And I just hope and expect that we will be working extraordinarily hard to make the words a reality. Because I have to say that the line, which is in bold, which kind of makes it stand, it deliberately makes it stand out. That's what bold's for. That says, when you contact us, we will be easy to deal with, isn't always, not always, the experience of all the people we deal with. And I think that may be because we've still got this slight, well, I've still got a slight ambivalence about the word customer, because to me, the word customer is about people who have a choice about where they get their things from, whether they be objects or services. And of course, for some people interacting with local government, in fact, all of us interacting with local government when it comes to paying our council tax, we don't actually have a choice of what provider we go to for those things. So I think we need to be really clear in our minds about what we mean by customer in this context and work our socks off to make the strategy a reality and to make it always the case that we will be easy to deal with. And of course, that applies to councillors as well as our customer services department. We're all in it together, even though we don't have a government department anymore about local government. We're all in it together when it comes to levelling up, clearly. And we've got to make this work properly and not just have it on a shelf gathering dust.
Yeah, no, absolutely, I agree. And I think that we'll make sure he's got a very good, clear note of that and will be held to account by it. And I think as well, it's important to remember that we have got clear corporate priority. I hate that word, isn't it? We have got clear values now, and we will be putting our people first, and councillors, contractors, residents who come and need our support are all our customers in that broader sense. And I would expect that we bear that in mind as we move forward as officers and as members dealing with members of the public and ourselves. Ian.
Yeah, I mean, really, thanks, Chair, and to probably to echo some of Judy's words. I mean, first of all, I think obviously thanks to Joe and obviously colleagues for drafting this. I think again, it's a really excellent document. I think the part I certainly would echo from what Judy had said. I think there's on the document I'm looking at, it's at page 23. I think in 21, 22, we will champion positive customer service across the whole organisation, and I think that's the challenge there. I think this isn't something that purely sits within the customer service team and Joe's directorate and so on. It is about the whole organisation, and I think obviously that us as a political leadership, the obviously senior officers as the senior leadership team, and obviously other and staff across the organisation, how we actually champion that. And so I think I'd be interested, I mean, maybe the chief executive might wish to comment how kind of he sees or how we will champion that positive customer service across the whole organisation, how we use this document and obviously raise the awareness of staff and that and in their different teams and so on. A couple of sort of specific points, and apologies, Joe, if I've missed it somewhere. I know I did raise with you directly the idea about whether we should have some mention of the fair collection policy within this document. I think that's a really important strand, especially bear in mind some of the things that we've said recently around council tax collection and the way, and I think the quite empathetic, sympathetic way we are dealing with that as an organisation, where particularly where a lot of people are having financial difficulties at the moment, and that fair collection policy, which we started pre-pandemic, but I think is a real key plank of the things that we do, and whether that should be specifically mentioned. And the other thing is, and I'm not necessarily looking for sort of wholesale amendments here or anything, but I was at a LGA performance management session along with, on a separate day, Councillor Dennis Harburg attended, where obviously we're looking at amending the LGA performance management guidance and so on. And sometimes that can feel like quite a dry subject and so on. But actually, it was a really interesting session, mainly because there were only two councillors on it, and actually, and me and this other councillor from Epsom and you were able to talk quite a lot on that. And so I think it clearly was interesting on that basis. But there's a section on here on measuring success, and I'm conscious here that in terms of those measures, and particularly bear in mind maybe some of the challenges we set ourselves in the council plan, I'm interested to sort of get sort of Joe's views as to whether we think the measuring success should have some more specific measurement in it, by number, target, or so on. I'm really interested to get sort of Joe's view about how we get that. We've clearly got targets and other things, whether some of those things should be mentioned in the measuring success. And I mean, it's something that I hadn't particularly I think considered, certainly when we last looked at this document, but the LGA session the other day reminded me of that, and I just asked that as a question. But I'd say I think this is a really good document, but I'd be interested to hear the comments back about that fair collection, and also the issue about how we embed this across the whole organisation.
Thank you, Ian. I think what we can do with this, I'm going to hold some of the points that I think Anthony might want to answer until after we've heard from Steve, in case Steve has got additional points that Anthony might address. I think one of those points could be referencing the internal values that we have for staff and members of this council, which are clearly quite a good tool to help us make sure that we are delivering on what we're setting out in these strategic documents. On the fair collection policy, I've had a quick look, Joe, at what we've set out, and I agree with Ian, we haven't captured it. I don't necessarily think we should set out the policy in full in this place, because that doesn't make sense. But perhaps maybe on the fourth page, which is page 22 in tonight's agenda pack, if we could add maybe an 8th box to that little sort of set of ticks that references how we will treat our customers fairly when it comes down to debt collection policies. Maybe you could have a go at drafting that as an amendment ready for when this goes to full council on Thursday, if there's sufficient time. Do you want to come back on any further points from Ian, Joe?
I was just going to mention that on page 23, there is reference, I think it's the halfway down a yellow tick, there is a reference to the fair collection policy there.
Okay, and I've also been informed that we're not referring this to council anyway,
No.
for whatever reason. So are you satisfied on the fair collection point, Ian? Okay, good. In that case, we'll hold the other points for Anthony to come back in on. Before I take Steve, we need to note that Councillor Collins attended the meeting at 8:01. Steve.
Thanks. I mean, I think this is a very good document. It sets out clearly what it is we're aiming to do. I think it's worth noting that the achievements are about putting in place mechanisms, and what we still have to do in the future aims is to change people's behaviours to use those mechanisms to deliver what we're trying to achieve. And I think it's important to recognise that although there is clearly a lot of effort put into doing that, we've still got some areas where we have to make some progress in order to deliver the aims that we're setting out here. I was pleased to see that there is a section on measuring success, but I agree with Ian Albert that it could do with some quantification. You know, I think we'd like to see an increase in digital contact and transactions, but we want a substantial increase. You know, some of these things are difficult to put numbers on, but we're not talking of a 1 or 2%. You know, we're looking for 30% or 50% or something like that. So I think there are some of these where we need to be a bit more specific. And also, given that we've extended the timescale of this out to 2027, I think we need to be clear that success doesn't mean achieving these things in December 2026. It means achieving them long before that, which I'm sure is what's intended.
Yes, I will reference back living document, and we're going to do our absolute best. Before I sort of throw to Anthony, I've been informed that Joe's had a hand up, which I can't see because I've got no access to the virtual hands. Do you need to come back in on anything at this stage, Joe?
No, it was just to respond to the fare collection point.
Cool, no worries. And in that case, I'll take some points from Councillor Clark, and then I'll ask Anthony to give us any additional feedback.
Is it on? Yeah. Okay, thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes, I agree with Councillor Levitt about the not everybody does things digitally. There are still a lot of people who, you know, want to speak to people, want to do things by the Royal Mail, you know, and phone up, and we do need to allow for that. Also, as an organisation, as we come out of pandemic and move forward, there is a lot of staff change. So there will be, you know, a number of new staff within the organisation that we need to take account of and ensure that they take on these values and are able to exhibit them, you know, as they are employed. So we start from a higher plane and bringing our own existing staff who are very good, I might add, just before I get accused of having a go at them. They are good, but we can all do better, including the councillors. Thank you.
So the end of your point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. Some councillors have got values that I've implemented and expect them to adhere to, which sit quite neatly actually with what we've got set out in the new council plan. Funny that, isn't it? Right. Anthony, I think we've got a couple of bits and pieces that you might want to add some detail to for us to assist members.
Thank you, Chair. Joe and I were literally just this afternoon discussing the rollout plan for the customer service strategy. So I won't go into it in full detail. Suffice to say, we'll be updating our customer service training that we deliver to staff. We'll be including this in the induction of all new staff. There'll be lots of communications to staff, certainly initially as it's launched, but also on an ongoing basis, because the key with any of these things is to try to keep it at the forefront of people's minds as they're doing their job every day. So we need to reinforce those messages. Additionally, we are reviewing the organisation values and behaviours in light of the new council plan, in light of the way we're working, and I think those can reflect what the approach in the customer services strategy is saying as well, and then we will be delivering that through our Shaping the Future organisational development programme. So lots and lots of different strands to it. Key thing is to bring it to life and make people live it.
There we go. We do enjoy a bit of living the values. Right. Any further input, feedback, question, queries? Nope. In that case, as I said previously, I was incorrect in saying that this was going to go to full council. The recommendation on this agenda item is, when she finds the correct page, here we go. So it is that Cabinet adopts the following documents: Appendix A, Customer Service Strategy, which will now run from 2021 to 2027, and Appendix B, the Customer Care Standards. And then the Cabinet agree to delegate any minor changes in relation to the Customer Service Strategy and Customer Care Standards to the Service Director, Customers, in consultation with the Executive Member for the Customer Service Centre, which is the leader. Are we happy? Can we vote, please?
Thank you, Chair. That motion is carried.
Thank you very much. And I think I'm now back on track and running with the correct numbers again. So item 9 is the quarterly risk management update. Councillor Albert and Ian Cooper to present.
I think it's probably me, Chair, but obviously Mr. Cooper, and obviously I'm happy to pick up any specific questions. Really, just very briefly on this report. The report provides a summary of risk management activity in the last quarter, as summarised in paragraph 2.1 on page 39. There aren't any proposed changes to the corporate risk, so there are no formal decisions for cabinet to make, but so really on that basis I'm asked the recommendations that we note the report, obviously ask cabinet colleagues to do so.
Okay, thank you very much. We've also had this item referred to us from the Finance, Audit and Risk Committee. Who is presenting that referral?
I think, Chair, I mean, if Mr. Cooper will perhaps I'm sure will correct me if I'm wrong, but the Finance, Audit, Risk Committee had no specific comments on that. Ian, is that your shared understanding? So I think they were happy for this report to be passed on to here and noted.
Okay.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, excellent. And obviously members have got in front of them the referral notice from Finance, Audit and Risk if they have any questions or queries that what they want to pick up flowing from that. Do we need to have a conversation, discussion, debate points on this item? Councillor Billing is shaking her head.
That's only me.
It's only you. I'm looking down the line, giving everyone the opportunity. Nope. Okay. In that case, can we go to the vote on this item, please, Will?
Thank you, Chair. That motion is carried.
Excellent. Thank you. And the next item is first quarter revenue budget monitoring. We've also had this referred to us from Finance, Audit and Risk. I will throw to Councillor Albert to present this and provide any comment on the referral from FAR.
Thanks, Chair. And again, I tend to be reasonably brief this evening. I may go into a little more detail at full council. I mean, table 3 in the report summarises the various variances for this quarter. They're mainly a combination of COVID-19 impacts carry forward and the impact of the waste contract inflation. Some of the COVID-19 variances in the table are for the first quarter only, particularly relating to parking. Table 5 provides a full year estimate, and this is what's included in the general fund estimated impact in table 6. This estimate is prudent, and we would hope that as long as there are no further periods of restrictions, we've been in a position to provide a more positive forecast at quarter 2. I think we've seen some really good pickup, for example, on parking across the district, and especially in Hitchin. And so I think but recognise that we are being rather more prudent, I believe, than necessary at the moment. But I think that's the right thing to do at this stage. But we will then come back, I think, with a slightly different forecast at quarter 2. We'll also provide an update on the Stevenage leisure position at quarter 2, once we've seen the impact of the summer period, where demand is sometimes in the past, been lower than the rest of the year. I know Councillor Jarvis and I have been attending some very helpful meetings with Stevenage leisure, and again we're seeing some really good pickup. And I think one of the things that we said as a council about the importance of running leisure services and maintaining our leisure services was about actually making sure that particularly, I think, adults and indeed and children across the district are able to continue with aqua education, learning to swim. And it's what's really encouraging to see that actually now that the swimming lesson membership has now reached pre-COVID levels and is likely to exceed that very soon. And that's really encouraging, and we'll look to see how other areas sort of pick up across that, and we'll report back at those at future meetings. But again, that is positive. Paragraph 8.12 refers to the potential for a business rates pool. The Herts authorities are obtaining advice on the risks and benefits of a pool, as well as which district should be in it. The closing date for pool applications is the 8th of October, which is why a delegated decision is requested and set out in paragraph 2.4. So colleagues really just to ask you to agree recommendations 2.1, 2.2, 2.3 and 2.4 in the report. And again, Mr. Cooper and I are happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you very much, Ian. Questions, queries, comments? No. Stunned silence. Okay, in that case, can we move to the vote on the recommendation, please, Will?
Thank you, Chair. That motion is carried.
Thank you very much. And now item 11, my goodness me, it's a hat trick for Councillor Albert and also another FAR referral, the first quarter investment strategy, capital and treasury review. Off you go, Ian.
Cheers, thanks, Chair. The paper in front of colleagues. I think the executive summary sets out, I think, a lot of what I wanted to say, which is obviously update you on the progress of our capital and treasury strategy so far this year up to the end of June. Table 4 shows that we would need to borrow if the capital programme was fully spent, but the majority of that programme relates to property acquisition and development, and this will depend on opportunities being available, which may be limited given the current economic conditions. So as it stands, we have not looked at undertaking any borrowing. I'd particularly like to draw, I think, the attention of Cabinet colleagues to item 2.1 in the recommendations, paragraph 8.3, which obviously includes some additional forecast expenditure in relation to laptop purchases. And I think I'm sure that will be welcomed by colleagues, council members in Royston, is that we're actually providing some additional support to clear some problems of drainage at the Coombs Community Centre, which will, I think, will enable that to get back fully into use and fully being able to be hired out. And I think hopefully that additional expenditure that we're proposing there of 25,000, if Cabinet colleagues agree, I think will be much welcomed by the Coombs Community Centre and enable them to really enhance their programme and their hiring. The Treasury position continues to be dominated by high balances but very low interest rates, meaning that our investment interest forecast is lower than what we have budgeted. But I say, Chair, I think the details there in front of you, and I think we'll just really like, obviously, Cabinet colleagues to agree recommendations 2.1 to 2.4. But again, Mr. Cooper and I happy to answer any specific questions that you might have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I realise I've left Mr. Cooper out of the loop on a number of these items, and I'm assuming that he's quite satisfied that Councillor Albert is presenting things adequately. If it was inadequate, I think we would have heard from him. Any questions or queries on this item? No? Wow. You have done very well tonight, Ian, I think. Far too well. So can we move to the vote, please, Will?
Thank you, Chair. That motion is carried.
Excellent. Oh, no. And it's a fourth one. Item 12, the medium-term financial strategy. Councillor Albert to present.
Cheers. Thanks, Chair. And again, I mean, I think try not to be reasonably brief on the item this evening. The medium-term financial strategy is in a separate appendix, and in a moment I'll just sort of turn back to that. You've got obviously two recommendations, I think, recommendations in front of you, obviously, so we can recommend the medium-term financial strategy to Cabinet. And I mean, if I can just move to the other document, just to make sure I've got that in front of us. And say that's in Appendix A, which is in the separate document in the papers this evening. that medium-term financial strategy is attached there, as I said, and we're asked to refer to full council for approval. It'll be approved alongside the council plan, as the two documents should be, and indeed, as I mentioned earlier, I think are this year closely linked. You should only plan to deliver what we can afford, and our allocation of resources should be driven by our priorities. Following, hopefully, the approval of this strategy by council, we will be working on the design of the strategy to make it easier to read before it's published on the website. This version begins to take that into account, but I think we'll be looking a bit like on the other documents to develop a rather enhanced presentation of that to go on the website. But by its nature, it is reasonably wordy, unlike me. As well as the usual considerations in the strategy, this strategy makes provisions for the continuing impact of COVID-19 in 22, 23 and 23, 24. And there's hope by 24, 25 things will be back to normal, but we will clearly, given that, keep that under review. Given that the pandemic focus, the strategy does not yet consider some of the other budget scenarios that could transpire in the longer term, but they are described in the strategy. Strategy estimates that what it does estimate that we will need to make around 1.8 million of savings by year 5, and the strategy sets out how these savings will be identified and delivered, including the role of the budget challenge process and, of course, the use of public consultation with residents. We are faced, as usual, with likelihood of a one-year settlement. So again, that whole point about having a longer-term financial strategy does make it, I think, challenging for this leadership, and I think for the council more broadly, for any administration of this council, that would make that more difficult. But it would be much better if we did have a detailed funding settlement and indeed an idea of how a new funding formula should work. So colleagues, I'm really happy to commend the strategy to you. I think it's prudent, it's balanced, it's cautious, but I think that's the right thing to do at this time. We know that there are challenges in front of us. We know where we've set our priorities for delivery, for the priorities that we've set in the council plan, the ambitious priorities we've set in the council plan. I believe this strategy helps us deliver that, and helps this administration and this council deliver that alongside our officer colleagues. I commend the strategy to you and recommend a recommendation that we refer it to full council for later this week and ask them to agree it. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Ian. And in fact, actually, thank you to both Ians. I'm incredibly proud of the work that you've put into this document. It's probably the most accessible and readable medium-term financial strategy that I have seen since I joined this council. Oh gosh, how many hundreds of years ago? No, 5 years ago. So I'm sure that colleagues can remind me that there were in fact far less accessible documents than even this. I'm particularly happy that we've got a clear sort of narrative approach to it, and that makes it much more readable, even though it is still 8 pages and quite text heavy, but a financial document of this weight will always be like that. And I quite enjoy that it's going to sit neatly with where we're going with the council plan. And it's nice to see finally that we're in a position where we've got a clear strategic policy direction and we have a budget that works with that and that links with that and supports it. The only other point I think that I might make is perhaps our lives, as Ian indicated, in local government would be so much easier, wouldn't they, if we didn't keep having to deal with these ridiculous one-year funding settlements. And now maybe that we've got a minister for levelling up, he'll turn his mind to how we're going to level up local government. Am I supposed to be political in cabinet? Oops, I just was. Questions, queries, comments on the MTFS, please. Ian Cooper.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to clarify that you're being asked to approve Appendix B, which is an updated version, albeit very slightly updated, which has been reviewed by the communications team. And that is the version going to Council with the text. And that is the final version of the text. There will be some updates to the graphics on it, but that's the final text for this document. So that won't change now.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Has everybody seen Appendix B, and is everybody happy with Appendix B? Yes. Okay, in that case, unless there's any further comments or questions, no. Can we go to the vote, please?
Thank you, Chair. That motion is carried.
Very good. Right. Is that the end? I think it might be. I've got strategic planning matters next, I believe, which is councillors Paul Clark, Sam Collins, and Nigel Smith as the officer to present. Which one of you three is going first?
I think that's me.
You're being indicated by your colleague, so yeah.
Yeah. First part of the report. I will start off. You have the report in front of you, which you're being asked to note, and the letters that are the appendices, which one does refer to a local plan. I'll start off with our local plan, which was passed to the Planning Inspectorate's network back in 2017 with full control and control taken away from us. We are still awaiting a reply. We were told autumn we could expect a reply. We're now being told November. The flippant side that I normally get told off for is we haven't been told what year. So that's as far as I'll go for that, because I know I could get into trouble. It does cause problems. We've got officers there that have worked on this as far as they have. We need to know when we are going to get it. We need to physically receive the report. The rationale for the delay between August and November is that it was a long time ago and he's got to reread his papers. I will let you draw your own conclusions. Moving on in the strategic plan, central beds is in there. The reason for highlighting this is because there is a lot of developments around the edge of central beds that come close to us in North Herts, 4,500 in Barton le Clay houses, the buildings up at Henlow and Shefford and Poppy Fields, all which will impact on us, and we need to be mindful of the infrastructure going forward. On neighbourhood plans, the examiner has been appointed for the Ashwell neighbourhood plan. That is moving forward. On the growth board, I don't think a lot has happened over the summer, so the new settlement work is going ahead with Elizabeth and myself as co-joint chairs with Councillor Halsey in East Herts and Anthony Roche. Apart from that, I will hand to my colleague to cover the transport side.
Thank you, Paul. I'll jump onto Luton Airport straight away. The position of the council hasn't really changed on this. Luton Airport's attempt at expansion, we currently do not believe are in the best interests of our area. There's quite a lot of back and forth on the various consultations. The details are in items 8.13 to 8.15. But moving on to 8.16 and 8.17 in your papers, I think these items really reiterate the importance this council places on walking and cycling as part of a way to essentially create sustainability in all transport modes across the area, and that goes into 8.18 and 8.19. And 8.19 I think is quite important to mention. The Herts Links, this is something that's been funded by Hertfordshire County Council, but was an idea dreamt up by an officer of this council under this administration, and delivering a new bus service from having the grain of an idea about 12 months ago to delivering a working bus service this year is absolutely sensational. I think that's really should be applauded. So I think this council really should be sending its thanks and appreciation to Daniel Washington, who's the officer who's sadly leaving for the Isle of Wight. We're very sorry to see him go. However, we wish him the best of luck there. But walking and cycling is a fantastic thing for us to be pushing forward, and you're going to see more of these LC WIP plan talks, local cycling and walking infrastructure planning. The idea of those, for those who don't follow these things in great detail, is to lay out a map of what we'd love to do if we had the funding available to do it. And when government decides that walking and cycling are as important as we decide they are, we'll be able to implement some of those plans working with the county council. Moving on to railway timetabling, which has always been a hot issue in this area at 8.20, and you've got the two letters in the appendix. They've actually become a little bit redundant in the time between the letters we've written and this meeting has taken place, in the GTR and LNER have both suspended their changes to the timetable for May 2022. I'd like to think partly as a response to these letters, but also to the rail users groups in our area, and they've postponed that to 2023. We'll probably have to go back and feedback on new plans, but the core here is that cuts to rail services in our area are entirely unacceptable. We will not support that. We want to see the best and adequate services for our stations as possible, and as part of that, we are going to request that LNER start serving Hitchin station with long distance trains as well. That may not be deliverable, but it's something we're working on. Then moving on finally to sustainable travel towns, great scheme, lots of work going on in Royston and Hitchin to deliver that. Pretty much goes back to where I started, walking, cycling, better sustainability for our area, and well, the rest of the details there in the report. So I hope you enjoy it.
Thank you very much. I'm going to ask if Nigel has anything to add on what Sam and Paul have said.
No, thank you, Chair. That was very comprehensive.
Okay, lovely. Paul, do you need to say something?
Yeah, could I please ask to place on record this council's thanks for the hard work and dedication of Daniel Washington, who is leaving us. He has been in my dealings with him as planning and transport exec. I'm sure there are many others that deserve this accolade, but I would like to place it for Daniel, because he has done such a good job.
Thank you. I think we can all agree that this cabinet needs to clearly note that and express our thanks and appreciation for Daniel's work. Judy.
I was also terribly alarmed to hear that he's going to the Isle of Wight Council, because actually working on the Isle of Wight in local government is quite difficult.
That's why he's living in Bournemouth.
Yeah, I know, living on the Isle of Wight, it's gorgeous. It's just if any of you have ever seen the offices in Newport, I mean, I have done a bit of work down there. So if you want to suggest to Daniel that we have a little word, or that he doesn't go. Yes,
I'm so glad this meeting isn't being broadcast on YouTube.
Sorry.
I'm sure it was entirely meant in jest. Okay, right, so calm down. Are we ready? Yeah? All right, children, let's carry on. So any comments, questions, queries, debates on this report? We're being asked to note the report and the appendices. I've got to... Sorry,
Madam Chair, and endorse the appendices.
Oh yes, and endorse the appendices as well. I have our deputy member, Councillor Mantle.
Thank you. I just wanted to draw attention to Cabinet of the importance of integrating what Councillor Collins said about walking and cycling into our other development control activities. Ensure that when we approve new developments, we take into account really properly sustainable transport options for accessing the development and for moving about within the development. And it's something which we very much will need to bear in mind if and when we ever get a district local plan.
Thank you very much. And I think I can bring this almost full circle right back to that council plan thing that we spoke about earlier. And this sort of really does show how we need to link up putting our people first with sustainability, because clearly you can't deliver the right sort of housing and the right kind of communities and infrastructure for the people we're putting first if you're not thinking about joining those dots and ensuring that everything is integrated. I think the message for all of us is that we have got to finally stop working in silos and start looking across the piece to solve all of the kinds of wicked issues that we face in local government. That didn't trigger Councillor Billing. You're doing quiet. Well done. All right. Listen, let's get on with it then. So I think we can move to the vote, Will, please.
Sorry, I did indicate that one.
Oh, you did indicate, and you've spoken so much that I thought it was a legacy.
Twice. God. I just wanted to say, totally agree with what you said, and to reassure, Councillor Mantle, that within the master planning process, that is the direction, and we can't see Nigel Smith, the officer concerned, throwing things at the screen at me, but that is the full intention. And as Councillor Dennis Harburg says, that is what the council plan is going forward.
There we go. All right. Are you hovering over a voting button, Sam? You're not wanting to come in and speak, are you? No. Good. Okay. Will, can we vote?
Thank you, Chair. That motion is carried.
Wonderful. Okay. In which case, that brings us to item 14, which is the exclusion of press and public. I would like to propose that under section 100A of the Local Government Act 1972, the press and public be excluded from the meeting on the grounds that the following report will involve the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraph 3 of part 1 of schedule 12A of the said act as amended. I'm getting waved at. Why are you waving at me? Okay, shut up and behave. Thank you. Can I have a seconder, please?
Happy to second, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy. And can we vote on moving into part 2?
Thank you, Chair. That's carried.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Okay, in that case, our IT support will now move the officers and the stream to this chamber to a breakout room so that the meeting can continue. A holding message will be displayed on the YouTube channel. Please give us a few moments to ensure that this has happened. Make sure that you behave yourselves until we've got the go ahead.
Okay, Chair, we're back in public session.
Lovely, thank you very much. Would you like to do a roll call to make sure that we've managed to bring the key officers that we need for this part back in?
Steve Crowley,
Yes, present.
Anthony Roche,
Present.
Andrew Mills.
Yes, present. Thank you.
Are there any other officers on the call that I have not called out?
Yes, I'm still here. Ian Cooper, Surrey Resources.
Thank you very much.
All right then, and we don't need a roll call of councillors because we're all here. Okay, so I now need to take the part 1 item on the Wilbury Hills crematorium project. I've got a note that tells me that I should ask Steve to present, but I think, no, not that Steve, Sam. Steve, the officer Steve. However, would Sam, the portfolio holder Sam, like to present on this? You want Steve to do this? Okay.
Yeah, we agreed this all in advance, but obviously
I
nobody
forgot.
told you that. I set out in the report, there's been, the council's been pursuing the potential to build a crematorium adjacent to the cemetery in Wilbury Hills, but that has not been granted permission by Central Beds Council, and we've not been successful at obtaining permission on appeal. It therefore appears no longer viable to pursue the option of building a crematorium on that site. And as set out in the recommendation, the proposal is to investigate alternative uses for that site. So I'd like to propose the recommendation 2.1 as set out in the report.
Excellent, thank you very much. Okay, does anybody have anything to add from the portfolio holder and the officer side to what Councillor Jarvis has set out? No? Okay. And in that case, do you colleagues have any additional comments or debate and discussion to make on this item? No? Okay. In that case, can you take us to the vote, please, Will?
Thank you, Chair. That motion is carried.
Right. Thank you very much. And thank you to everyone that's attended and been present here and via Zoom and who's chosen to not watch something exciting like Bake Off and watch us instead. Have a great night. Can we take the stream offline, please?